you and your entire life then gets taken out of, time. I think that's
gotta keep your friends close and your enemies
dead.
Even closer.
your enemies undead. I always imagine we have one person that listens and their name is Doug. But for Doug...
I don't know how many Dougs you know in your life, but okay.
Only the one that watches these videos. Alex, have we officially gone insane?
Absolutely. Insanity checks all around. Get those abyssal horrors.
Roll for fortitude. Mental fortitude.
No, that'd be wisdom.
Oh, that's true. That would be.
Nice try, though.
I only ask because of the amount of crafting hacks that I've put you through these last couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad that you're still intact. Anyway.
Barely. Yeah. I've had to hide my head in a box several times now.
Well, it was a good thing we watched that video then. Hello everybody and welcome to Total Pebble Knockdown. I am Nathan.
And I am not in a box and Alex.
You are not in a box and you are Alex. Those are two separate statements. We want to make that very clear. It's not you're not in the box, Alex. That wouldn't be
see.
We'll see. Okay. Alex, these last few weeks we've been doing some adventure hooks, and you've been giving me them for the most part, except for some incomplete ones that we were looking at. But today, I have an adventure hook that I want to give you.
Perfect.
All right.
I'm hooked. Let's go on this adventure.
Oh, well, if you're already hooked, I don't even need to do anything at all.
Well, oh no, amnesia. What's the hook?
Okay, I imagine having your party. They've gone out adventuring and everything. As they're coming back from whatever adventure, whatever current campaign they have been on, they get to the next town. And when they get to the next town, they see statues in the middle of the town square. And it's them. That these are the heroes of legend. And it talks about the adventure that you just went on as if it happened hundreds of years ago. And when people see you, they think that you're like cosplaying as the heroes of legend and that it's a really good cosplay because you look so much like them at this point. And when you try to explain to them that you are those people, the answer eventually comes back that, well, that's not possible. They've died. They died a long time ago. We can even show you where their graves are. You have a little bit of an issue, as you could probably guess. And if
doppelgangers from the past.
If you were to go to other towns, they might not necessarily have these statues, but they would know the stories. Like, you'd go into taverns, and the bards there would be singing songs about the adventures that you had gone on.
Okay.
There would be tales, there would be books that detailed your lives.
So I guess that begs the question of what was the adventure we just came back from? Do our characters remember the adventure they just came back from?
Oh yeah, I think that they remember what they just did. You're fully I don't think that you've been tampered with at all. Like, your characters are still very cognizant of what they've done and how they have done it. And thought that they had kept all their records. Yeah.
So I was asking because memory loss and then having like a time lapse could be a thing.
Right, right. It could. I don't envision them having a memory problem because the reason I say that is because knowing that you've gone on those quests is kind of integral to knowing that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
That, everybody else already knows and has already, and maybe in some ways, intriguingly enough, has misremembered things about your quest, so when you're reading about it, the details don't add up to what you just did.
Oh, so it's slightly different.
Yeah, well, or that, I'm just thinking because sometimes history has a tendency to get, mixed up between translations, or when people actually go to record, the people that have recorded it on the information that they had is different than what you remember happening. Maybe because
Okay.
they only had like certain journal entries, they only had certain pieces of information that were presented to them, not your personal recollection.
So the question is, if you guys have not left from that adventure to tell anyone about your story, like your adventure, who did? Who told them about it?
Right.
So it begs the question of maybe there's a situation like you're fighting a big bad evil guy, for instance, or a dragon, or some lich, or I don't know, some evil thing. I don't know what your previous adventure was, but maybe the big bad evil guy cast some sort of spell or had some kind of magic trap in there where it held you in place as if nothing had ever happened, like a stasis type spell. You don't perceive the fact that 1,000 years just passed, but 1,000 years just passed.
Here's another little twisty thing, though, that I was thinking about to just add to the mystery here. The world, when you get back into town, does not look like it has advanced 1,000 years.
Okay.
And people are the same.
What about people you knew?
They're still
before
there.
your adventure. Okay,
They
so no
haven't
time has elapsed.
As far as you can tell. Or the possibility might have been you got transported back in time, and as far as they're concerned, you were only alive 1,000 years ago.
Okay. Because I was going to say, what if you go to, like, find your parents, for instance?
Right.
Are they alive? Are they not alive? Are you back in time and meeting your great-grandparents?
I was thinking that they would be alive, but they don't know who you are. They're there, but they don't know who you are, and they might have had your brothers and sisters. Your brothers and sisters might be there, but you are completely out of the picture.
Okay,
they know you from legend, but they don't know you personally.
And then you're like, I'm your son.
Yeah, and they go, well, no, I think you must be confused, because we don't have another son. We have.
But then they're like, but if we did have a son, we were thinking about naming them after this hero.
Yeah. Bootstrap principle. We're getting
100%. Bootstrap. I was thinking bootstrap paradox would be great for this.
Yeah.
Because you're introducing the characters to the thing that causes the event to happen. Like, oh yeah, they inspired their parents to have them as kids.
Oh yeah. And the records get corrected because you were there, and you can correct the records and write the new records down.
Yeah, this is
from
the
new
reason.
Information. Yeah,
it's the reason that I don't remember which Ocarina of Time. I think probably
either Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. Probably
Link. From adult Link teaches child Link how to play one of the songs on the Ocarina or whatever.
Right.
He learns it from someone, and it turns out he learns it from himself.
Right.
His future self teaches it to his past self. It's a bootstrap paradox. No information is actually introduced here. It has always been here. But there's no reason it exists to begin with.
Right. If I remember correctly in that, it was like he learned it when he was older, and then when they were able to use like the Song of Time and he went back, then the younger him could use it, and that informed that in the future he could use it. But it turned out the person he learned it from was him. That was my basic thought process, and the bootstrap principle would be very interesting to explore during this, but I kind of like the just general notion of coming back to town from your adventure and just feeling like you are now something ancient that has now stepped into the present that you're familiar with. But everybody else remembers this as something that happened, all of your adventures happening, all of your mythology, all of your history happening 1,000 years before this.
Yeah, so maybe time is a little finicky here.
Well, one of the ways I was thinking this might resolve is that on the current quest that you were on, or when you went away, there was a time dilation where you went backwards. And then everything that you had done essentially happened in the past without realizing it.
Yeah, you'd have to figure out some reason or explanation for that time dilation to occur, I think, though.
Right.
Because the players are going to want to investigate that. They're going to want to investigate what happened. Why did this happen, you know?
In order to set it up this way where nobody recognizes you, it wouldn't just be you transporting back in time. Like, you and your entire life then gets taken out of, time itself.
I think
transplanted into another.
I think the fun way to do this would be have someone be like, oh, remember at the end of your adventure when you celebrated by going to that tavern and having that meal called the 1,000-year egg? Yeah, it happens that this displaces time by 1,000 years or whatever. Something like that. It could be tongue-in-cheek. It could be kind of silly. It could be kind of serious. It was like, yeah, you were actually petrified. And didn't realize time had changed by by a basilisk or something.
There's a basilisk involved now. Uh-oh.
Maybe you ate basilisk eggs and turns out time-altering shenanigans happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, the second you eat a basilisk egg, you're gonna definitely feel like time altered. But...
Or maybe you could write it in where they had to use a powerful, like, a genie or something for their last adventure, and as part of the deal or wish they made, the genie went, sure, I'll do that. But here's some fuckery for you, because this is what we do.
You know what you asked the genie? I wish I could have been a hero of legend. And so, and they're like, oh, we can do that. But what they don't tell you is that means that you have to have been legendary in the past. You have to be a hero of legend.
I think it'd be interesting to, on that notion, like, with the genie, different adventure hook ideas, just give players, be like, have your character have, like, one wish in the world they would love to make.
Sure.
And then be like, think about it, write it down, and we're gonna find something that can grant this wish, essentially. Or, like, not even grant it, but, like, go for that as a goal. I don't know.
Sure.
Something with that could be interesting. It's a little different than your hook, of course, though.
You could set something up if you knew that you wanted to kind of like make this the crux of like a campaign or something like that. You could probably you could have the characters tell you a quest that they would consider like their legendary quest. Like if what their character specifically thought would be their ultimate mission, what their legendary goal is. And so then you can go through those, like you can have those as campaigns, and then after the party's essentially gone on these legendary missions that they always wanted to go on, that's when this hits.
Yeah.
And then we have to get the context that they don't necessarily even remember this part, that this was what they had wished for.
Yeah.
And now they're coming back to the realization that there's a little bit of a catch.
Yeah. I think it'd be definitely cool if you used it later on in the campaign.
Yes.
If you did exactly that. You're like, all right, cool, we're going to do this, that, the other thing. And then several months down the line, it's like as they've made a name for themselves doing these quests or these things, this is the thing that hits them. And it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, something.
Well, that way too, you can seed it in there too.
Yeah.
So you could be like, all right, here's a little snippet of what might happen later, but like no context for it, Mm-hmm. Just little hints here and there that you can make note of, and they can try to piece together.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how Doctor Who.
Sure.
Through each of its seasons had been like, oh, Bad Wolf shows up.
Right.
Like almost like every other episode in the first season, but you don't understand its relevance, so you don't pay attention to it.
Sure.
Or like how that season with the Master is there, and they keep talking about the Prime Minister or whatever, and then you get to the end of it, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. That's how
something like that.
Back.
I think would work really cool in a D&D game or an RPG in general.
There's also a certain hint, if you wanted to play it that way, that there's almost like an It's a Wonderful Life sort of thing about like, well, what if George Bailey was never there in the first place, and what's the world look like? But I think the different thing is that in this, it's not, well, the world would have been way worse without George Bailey. It's mostly like if your party did something in the past, and theoretically it's been beneficial, but it's because you did it all the way in the past, and the present you didn't do it, but the past you did. Yeah. So anyway, that was my thought for an adventure hook. I don't know if you like that or not as a concept.
Yeah, I think that's fun. I think it'd be great for a later adventure after the party's been together. Definitely. Trying to introduce it at the beginning would be a little bit harder, I think.
Yeah.
Because they have nothing to pull from as characters. So
we got to do an adventure hook for something for a starting quest. We got to think of something for that.
The tavern that you're staying in is on fire. We know I've done this one.
Yeah, we've done this one. There's some rats in the basement.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
I've done the your tavern is on fire.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Hey, there's a crypt that has a bunch of zombies in it. Would you like to go and check that out? Yeah, we got to next time we do an adventure hook though. We got to think of one that's for a starting quest for the party. That's our new mission. All right. Hey, everybody, if you have an adventure quest that you want us to think about, just let us know in the comments down below, and maybe you can help us out, because we're thinking about
maybe
this
we'll
stuff a
take
lot.
your adventure hook ideas and turn them into us talking for 30 minutes about it.
Yeah, I mean, we will take your brilliant idea and turn it into crap. That's what we're good at. I got sort of like a half-baked idea, and I want to figure out if it can be fully baked. Maybe it can't.
Well, let's pop it back in the oven at 400 for 15 minutes and find out.
Sounds like a good idea. Okay, so this is a concept for a brand new video game genre. I'm doing a crossover. And pretty much what I have cooking is your cozy game and a Souls-like. Take your Stardew Valley, mesh it with Dark Souls. It's Harvest Souls, and I think the reason why I don't see it very much is because they seem very disparate as genres. Because the cozy game isn't supposed to be, well, difficult, but also combat heavy. And I think you would have to make it so that it actually isn't about the combat that makes it difficult. It would have to do something with the actual farm itself.
And you just have rodents of unusual size that you have to murder because they're eating all your food.
So now it's like a tower defense game. You have, yeah.
Tower defense souls.
Tower defense souls. Harvest Souls defense. Great. One of the hallmarks of a Souls game is that there are consequences to failure, right? If you die, your souls or your essence or whatever, it gets dropped on the ground, and then you gotta go and you gotta reclaim it. And I'm thinking that you would have to have a thing where your farm itself was under attack or was being threatened with destruction. And that if negative consequences came along, like maybe thieves come and they steal your food, then you can go on a quest to regain it. But if you don't do it in the right time limit, now it's gone.
Isn't this... I feel like this would be more like Moonlighter.
Well, yeah, but in Moonlighter, you didn't really have to worry about that. You were the one going in and getting the loot.
Yeah,
and then it's
similar to that. You have a thing, a little cozy place, your shop. But then you have the adventure where you go out and get things for your shop.
Right. But there's not the farming aspect. Like, it's not
farming the items from the dungeons.
I guess if you wanted to consider it that, but I don't necessarily think of Moonlighter as very Soulsy. I think it's more...
It doesn't have to be Soulsy. You want a cozy action game.
I want a hardcore cozy game. I want to think about a game that is meticulous, and you have to think strategically about it, but it also lets you grow crops and learn about...
I feel like you're really just I feel like you're really trying for that. I love Stardew Valley and I like Souls-likes thing that you got going on there.
Now I gotta mesh them. I gotta mesh them in a way.
There's a game. It's a JRPG, so I don't know how much you like it.
Okay.
But it's called Harvestella.
Harvestella. Okay.
I think it's made by Square.
Oh god.
So, you know.
Oh no.
I tried it. I couldn't really get into it. It's very not my alley, I think. But, you know, you might be interested if you're liking the combat and the farming.
Oh,
maybe.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know, check it out.
Sure.
Not right now, because, you know, check it out, and then if you play it, you know,
I'll report back to see if it was what I was thinking about. Yeah.
I refunded it before 2 hours, because it's like, not my thing.
Right. Because, I mean, there is combat in a lot of those games, like Stardew Valley, any of those, Coral Island. They have dungeons you go into, and you can fight monsters, and that's how you collect loot, but there's nothing about it that's like Souls-like. Maybe what you could do, I think it might be hard to actually do like the farming as the Soulsy element, just because they're separate.
I feel like what you do instead of a farm, like growing crops, you raise monsters.
Isn't this Graveyard Keeper?
I didn't like that one either.
You raise monsters.
Raise monsters, and that you take care of the graveyard. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. But you're thinking about actually raising monsters, or
yeah, you raise the monsters.
Okay, so it's a necromancer game. We create monsters.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh. This is not part of the genre. This isn't necessarily the game, but I might have come up with a better game. And I guess it's kind of like Dungeon Keeper, but it's much more of like the farming sim kind of thing, which is you have the dungeons instead of the farms. You own the dungeon, you make the monsters that are going to live inside of the dungeon, and then the heroes keep coming to try and kill off your monsters. I feel like
that's a game that exists already too, like games where you make the dungeon, put the monsters in it, and then heroes come in, a la tower defense style, to try and kill your, defeat your stuff and steal your treasure.
Well, that's why I said it might remind people of like Dungeon Keeper, but I'm like talking about like it looks like Dark Souls, it plays more like Dark Souls. You can go around your caverns and stuff. You can expand them out. You can dig out.
All right, so I've got the premise for you, Nathan. Under this guise, it's a game where you make the monsters. You play as a powerful lich.
All right, you love it.
And because now you're a necromancer, and technically you're undying. Like you can, your physical form can be destroyed, but they have to destroy your phylactery so you actually die, so you can come back.
Sure.
So now you've got the eternal life aspect.
Sure.
Coming back, and what you're doing is trying to create the baddest ass monster there is.
Okay, yeah, this is good.
And so you start off creating small monsters in your lab or in your vats, maybe you have vats where you grow these monsters.
Sure.
But you've got to go out and get the supplies and mix them and create them from other monsters, essentially. So you've got your exploration, and your gathering resource is gathering the body parts and stuff like that. And then you come back into your labyrinth or whatever, your lich home, I guess, and you combine these things, create the monsters, grow them up to be bosses, essentially, and fight them to see if they're worth, keeping. Okay,
this could work.
Yeah. Well, then you also have to have, a skill tree for, how you can do things, things you can give the monsters, skill trees to give the monsters different abilities and stuff like that, and then ways to improve you. So maybe the goal in this is when you create a monster, you can fight it, and if you like it, you can upload it to the archive for other people to try and fight. To spawn in the overworld or whatever.
Huh.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. Here's another possibility, though. I'm going to jump off of that. Maybe the goal is you're a lich, right? And liches don't really like the living. They're not fans. What if your goal was, you're trying to create your monster army because you want to take over the kingdom that you are currently in. So there are castles, there are towns, there are forts, and they're heavily defended. And what you're trying to do is trying to build those monsters so you can assault and take over those places. Now you have your detailed Souls-like combat, where you build yourself the army that you're going to be able to go into, along with your own ability, go in and try and take out the guards and, eliminate the people that are in those towns, and also, gather their resources, gather, their ore, take over the mines and everything so that you have more resources so you can make your golems, you can make your ghouls, you can raise the dead from the bodies of your fallen enemies. And if you die at any time, you are undying, your resources end up lost there because you fall into, a mist. Your resources end up, lying on the ground waiting for you. So now here's the lost souls element. And you resurrect back at your, keep, essentially, wherever you are. And in order to get it back, you have to get there. And if you die again before you get that, then too much time has passed, and those resources are lost.
I feel like instead of giving you, resources, what happens is if you die in the town gets emboldened and, it increases their power level, the army of the town defenses become stronger.
Kind of like the Nemesis system. Right? Yeah. Yep, that would be good.
Which is not a system you can use technically because it's, trademarked. But
yeah, they have actually used it for a few other types of versions of it. I don't think you can call it the Nemesis system. But
I know, it could be interesting. I think that idea that we just did with the Lich in the creating monsters is probably the best iteration of it.
Yeah. I like that idea, because you still get your combat, but you also get the cool thing where you get to be undead Lich, and you get to make, an army of the dead that you can then use and try and take over this very powerful kingdom, and all the knights and the adventurers and everyone that's trying to come after you. That'd be cool. Also kind of a neat idea for a tabletop campaign, being able to be Liches.
It'd be, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Everyone loves to be a necromancer, right? I think that's law.
Yes.
I think that's
gotta
law.
keep your friends close and your enemies
dead.
Even closer.
your enemies undead. What do we call the game? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Move Lich, get out the way?
No, definitely not that.
Okay.
I guess the real question is, what would you name a game about raising armies as a Lich and creating undead abnormalities, abominations?
Yes, what would you call our Cozy Souls game about Liches building armies that they can use to storm castles and such? Please, we're taking suggestions. Let us know.
Let us know in the comments below what you would name this game, and would you play it? Not that we have the ability to make it, but
probably
someone does.
Someone does. Who knows who? If you're out there, Eric Barone, after you're done with Haunted Chocolatier, here's your next game. Enjoy. Or From Software. You're done with Elden Ring. You need a new thing to make. Here, you can get into a whole new genre. It'll be super fun. Armored Core can wait. On the last episode, we talked a little bit about the Mary Sue and thinking about reframing that archetype for a character and the trope that it is. And on this one, I wanted to actually talk about a different trope in tabletop gaming, and that it might be a little overrated, and that's the character's tragic backstory. And I think we all kind of know what that is. It's like, well, you go and talk to the different characters that you've made, and, oh, well, what's your background? How did you become an adventurer? And
my parents were killed on Crime Lane.
Yes, absolutely, and that's how I became the Dark Avenger. Absolutely. It seems almost It seems almost like a comic book thing because it happens so much in comic books.
Yeah.
Superman's entire planet is destroyed, and then Batman's parents die in that alley that we're all familiar with, and
then Uncle Ben.
Yep. Yeah, Uncle Ben. It seems to be very, very common. I'm here to just make the statement that I think that is overrated and it's overused, and your characters don't really need to have a tragic backstory to be heroes. There can be positive reasons why you went into the adventuring game.
Or just selfish reasons, even.
Or selfish reasons. You could just be a jerk. Maybe
just be Deadpool.
Yeah, I mean, it could literally be actually, my parents were great. I'm just a shithead.
My parents were great, and they taught me altruism.
And they taught me altruism, exactly. Yeah, they taught me all the things that I needed to know. I came from a very nice household. It's just that I'm a dick. I'm a contrarian. I do the opposite of what people want me to do. I chaos
come
personified.
from a lot. I got this tattoo for.
Yeah.
My parents come from a long line of adventurers.
Yeah. You had a certain lineage that said that you had to be an adventurer. Like, for instance, some of the characters that I haven't actually played, but like Vaughn was a paladin. The reason why he's a paladin, though, is because he was basically sent away because he was being a rascal. He's a very roguish kind of character. And his parents, who also come from the nobility, were like, you know what? Becoming a paladin was very beneficial to your father and to your grandfather, and it taught them discipline, and so now you're going to go and learn how to be one too. So he ends up being a paladin, not because he has any righteous interest in it, but because basically his parents forced him to, because he was just being a rake and not doing anything productive with his life. But it wasn't a tragic backstory for him, because he was very wealthy, came from the nobility, had everything handed to him. His parents were perfectly fine with him, just doing whatever it was that just kept him out of trouble. Like, there's nothing about it, but by his own actions, he ended up having to essentially go to military academy, but it's paladins now.
Paladin school.
To paladin school, exactly. The thing that I was gonna do, though, with Vaughn, to play on that, is now he's become a paladin. This was the character I was going to cross-class paladin and warlock, where he finds a sword, and the sword really speaks to his kind of devilish nature, and keeps trying to convince him that he should do bad things. And so now he has these two, essentially the angel and the demon on two shoulders, telling him to do these things. But it's not a tragic backstory, and I would still say that that's a really interesting character, not because of, anything but simply, the circumstances that he was in didn't have to be anything, tragic. I similarly had another character that was Cypher, that I haven't played yet, and he is a wizard, and he's a tiefling, and his whole backstory was basically that he's a bookworm. He never left the library, basically, and he insisted, like, everyone would tell him to go out and, hey, you want to join us out for beers or whatever, and we'll go down to the tavern? Nope. He spent his whole life just absorbed into his books, because he needed to learn everything. He needed to know everything. And so eventually the books no longer serve him, so he has to go out into the field and experiment and, learn in real life how to basically find out how to do every spell. It's because I need to be able to cast every single spell. He has motivation that goes completely against the idea that it's tragic. He had a certain personality that led him to adventuring, and he had a motivation for doing it that was outside of that. Did you have any characters that had tragic backstories? Was Rexall's,
Rexall didn't have backstory.
Rexall just was. Rexall
was a nomadic barbarian. as his backstory. I think he might have had a slightly tragic, but I didn't actually go into details of it. I was like, yeah, he's like the last line of his barbarian family. Like, he's just the last one.
He's the Highlander.
Sure. I mean, he was pretty much, you know, timeless at that point, so he became the Highlander.
Yeah, perfect.
But I don't think I made it out to be a tragic. It was just like, oh, I don't know anything about his family. Let's just go with the fact that he is like a nomad, but he's like the last of the line of death dice.
Got it. Yeah. Snowball famously has a backstory that is, again, sort of like he came from nobility, and he could have lived very comfortably in his glade his whole time, but he kept reading these Sherlock Holmes novels that kept informing him about all of these wonderful detective stories, and he got enthralled with them, and then he wanted to go and become a detective because he read about it in these books, and he thought this is what I want to do with my life. This is what enthralls me. I don't want to live in this ivory tower or the ivory glade that he would have been in. The most tragic backstory that I think I had for a character was for Pip. And that's only because I did it as a joke. Pip Poppington, who is again a character I have not actually played, built him for something that we never did. But Pip Poppington was supposed to be a street urchin from the streets who was an artificer. And the reason why he kept building these things was because he thought he could cure his mother's death rickets, which have a 100% mortality rate, but he's still keeping a positive attitude that they can be cured. He's sure that he can do this. Also, his mom died, but he's still sure that he can figure out how to make this work somehow. Maybe there's a resurrection spell.
I feel like you haven't watched Full Metal Alchemist before.
No.
Got to do that sometime.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring this up, spoiler alert, it's like first episode. You learn that I'm pretty sure it's first episode. I don't know. Anyways, spoiler alert. They tried to bring their mother back from the dead. It did not go well.
It rarely does. That was also an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for the record.
Yeah, but I feel like Full Metal Alchemist did it better, probably.
Maybe. I saw one, not the other. So,
well.
But I
that speaks to you, not me.
Does it? Anyway, the thing is that
it speaks to I didn't watch a show with Sarah Michelle Gellar in it.
Don't disparage Buffy the Vampire Slayer. What are you doing? What are you doing?
If we're gonna throw it up in here,
yeah,
and we're gonna see in the comments, what did you watch, Buffy or Full Metal Alchemist?
Yes, let's get those. Let's get the fight going. It's one or the other. Who did it better? Who wore the trying to resurrect your mother outfit better? Buffy or Full Metal Alchemist? Let us know. The thing is, Pip was supposed to be an inversion of that idea because he always has a very positive attitude. He has an almost hilariously positive attitude that any situation can be overcome, even though he has a comically tragic backstory. And that was supposed to be the inversion as a joke, not for any serious reason. Not for any serious reason. I don't know if I would really give a character a tragic backstory, for the simple reason that I don't even find it all that interesting. What is going to be the motivation for your character? Despair? Trying to fix things in your past? Like, I don't know what can be explored there for your character. And the more tragic, the more this problem seems to present itself. Where, that becomes your character's entire story arc. There's not a lot of room to grow out of that, unless you're trying to cope with the tragedy from your past. But I'm gonna assume that if you have a really tragic backstory, and now you're adventuring, some time has already passed. If it's recent, maybe.
I feel like it'd be fun to have a character who has a actually really tragic backstory. because the traumatic backstory is something people go with a lot. Have a character that actually has a traumatic backstory, but they have amnesia about it, because a lot of things that can happen with trauma, some of that it happens to be memory loss.
Right, you repress it. You.
So maybe
purposefully.
you have repressed it to the point that you don't understand, like realize, like outwardly, your character might be fine and really positive. We know that trauma does not generally make people very positive people. It does not necessarily make them the happiest people in the world. Understandably, in this situation, have a character who outwardly is bubbly or happy. Not, they seem positive, and then it comes to light that through some things you do, they have memories unlock, and they learn about their backstory, and it was actually traumatic.
Yeah.
Good if you want a heavy game.
Yeah.
And heavy character, and you want. Be forewarned, that would be delving into the topics of different traumas a lot, I think, at that point, which. Not every table wants to deal.
Yeah.
Well, not every table wants to deal with that.
Yeah.
Not every person wants to deal with that.
Exactly.
Totally understandable. But if your table wants to and is okay with that, and you have players who can handle that and they want to do that, that could be a really interesting character arc for someone to have.
It's true. There's also the possibility that you could have something that was kind of tragic, but it happened really recently. Like it happened right before you started that adventure. So you really are trying to figure out how to deal with this situation. Like the reason you started this adventure was because your town just got razed to the ground by like the Red Wizards. they came, they just razed your town. Everything was fine right up to that point. And then it happened. So now you're dealing with the very recent tragedy that you've had to deal with. And then it's actually like your past before that can inform ways to actually deal with it, and you can talk about happier times before that happened. But just the general vibe of, my parents died in Crime Alley again.
We really gotta stop going down Crime Alley.
When you start heading down Crime Alley, did you ever think to yourself, this is not going to end well? It's that John Cena line from Bumblebee all over again. They're literally called the Decepticons. Did that not raise any red flags?
Yeah.
Like, it's literally, it's right there. Anyway, do you think that the tragic backstory is something that we can still utilize? Or I guess I would rather say, is it something you would want to utilize for your characters?
It depends on the characters, honestly. It's a hit or miss. I can take it, I could leave it. I don't think I go out of my way for it.
Right.
If it makes sense for the character and would be interesting to explore, then I think it'd be fine. But I can do just fine with a character that's, not tragic and traumatized.
Right. I don't think it needs to be eliminated. I just think that it gets so overused that it becomes like a shorthand for a lot of people when they build an adventure. Like, now that you've built your adventure, what is your tragic backstory? Like, it's almost a given. And I just think that there's a lot of real possibilities as to what your background could be and why you're on a quest in the first place.
Yeah.
And it might literally just be that your village or the elder or what clan you're part of said, this is the quest you need to go on, almost as rite of passage, as, a coming into adulthood sort of storyline. Those are other reasons people go on journeys. There are other reasons people go on quests. Like, in real life, that's stuff people do. So you can, relate it to that as well. It's just, there's a lot of possibilities, and I get a little concerned that, like, if people coming into tabletop games were given the impression that they have to have this really big, dramatic, heavy, tragic storyline for their character, it might scare them off from
if you're just coming into a game and you're like new to role playing, you don't even. I tell players, Like, you do not have to have a fleshed out backstory.
Mm.
Have a high concept of your character, be like, this is kind of what I want to do.
Yeah.
And we can fill out the details.
One of the best things that I've actually learned from actually playing games is it's actually much better to not have a fully fleshed out storyline for your character, that you can leave that space open so that we can kind of figure it out anyway. So the tragic backstory as like a catch-all at the beginning then also limits the possibilities of what you might actually explore later on. I guess the question would be, to everyone who happens to be listening to this, hi Doug. I always imagine we have one person that listens and their name is Doug. But for Doug...
I don't know how many Dougs you know in your life, but okay.
Only the one that watches these videos. Doug, I was wondering if you could tell me what you think about the tragic backstories, and more importantly, what is the kind of backstory you'd like to see more of for tabletop characters?
Yeah. Or tell us your tragic or non-tragic backstories in the length that will fit in a YouTube comment that's not a novel.
I was wondering if you could tell people where they might listen to more episodes of the show if they so wanted.
If you want, you can find more episodes of this show over at TotalPebbleKnockdown.com.
That's right, you go over there, you can find all sorts of things. You can find Titanium Mind, you can find creatures, and you can find over 80 episodes now of this show as well. You can see us on YouTube, you can see full episodes as well as the individual segments that come out. We've started releasing the full episodes after the patrons get it. Patreon.com. But you can...
Total Pebble Knockdown.
Total Pebble Knockdown. Or you go to our website and there's a banner. You can just check that out. But they are also getting released now in a fairly timely fashion when the actual episode releases on YouTube for people that want to see the whole thing in one go. But also the segments themselves are their own videos. If you listen to us on audio, feel free to check us out on every podcast app known to mankind, and please rate and review when you go. And you can also see us on social media. I am at Titanium.
I'm at EXP Limited, and the show is at Pebble Knockdown.
That's right, so find us over there, and until we meet again 1,000 years in the past for a tragic
Samurai.
backstory.